Hello again. Welcome to a brand new episode of KashCast. This is a huge get for us. We actually have a brand new guest. With me today is Meghan Lands, originally from Canada and currently in LA. Megan currently storyboards in HBO Max's Jellystone, new show currently created by C.H. Greenblatt, previously of Chowder and Harvey Beaks fame. Megan is also a general cartoonist and is known for making comics and has made multiple children's books, and previous shows she's worked on include Toon Marty and Chop Chop Ninja. I'm really delighted to have her on the show. And before I continue, of course, I'd like to give Megan a mic so she can talk about herself in case there's anything I may have missed or anything she'd like to contribute.
Hi. No, that is, as always, astoundingly thorough. I am all those things. Hi.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay. So first off, oh man, this is gonna be great. But first off, so I just want to get into we got the giggles today, audience.
I'm
But
a nervous
first off,
giggler myself.
so oh no, like trust me, like it really does like calm the nerves, but I really do appreciate it.
No problem.
But yes. Um, so first off, where did you originally go to school, and how was your experience learning about animation?
Yeah, so I am kind of a little bit unusual. I went to my undergrad here in Montreal, where I grew up. But I did a fine arts degree. I had considered animation probably at some point, but it just seemed too labor intensive. The schools here where I live that I had access to, what you're working towards is kind of an auteur type of thing where you make a short film and really fulfill all the jobs, for lack of a better word, yourself. And it's less with an eye to preparing you for a pipeline the way some of the private colleges do, and more to like sort of give you experience in filmmaking and making a short. And I was not ready for that. I was a real lazy daisy, and that's actually how I started making comics, because somehow that seemed like less work. Do not recommend. Uh, Anywho, so I graduated in studio arts in 2009, and then I was actually a graphic designer for a few years. I was working in packaging, and I thought I might want to do animation, and I kind of lucked into it.
It's super interesting, honestly. One thing that I've always like found interesting, like of course, like in discussion, there's always like, well, I don't know if sorts of contention is the right expression, but there always seems to be like some form of misinformation that like the one shot is to just like be lucky and just like go to school in like Cal Arts or whatever, when not
Yeah.
only are like there many other colleges, but there are like many other different paths you can take in order to be in the industry.
Yes, I love talking about this because I am for a certain segment of like 20-year-olds who either didn't get into Cal Arts or are nervous coming out of school, I am both the best case scenario and the worst nightmare. So I started as a storyboard revisionist at 30. I had had a lot of other jobs. And I started because a cartoonist I knew from comics got me onto a show he was working on. And I was a revisionist for a few years. And by the time I came out to LA, because I had been in touch with Carl and really wanted to work with him, by the time I got out here, I was about to turn 36. I was a month away from 36. And now here I am, 37, with the first show that I wrote on, my first board driven show coming out. So there's no such thing as too late. Uh, all my peers are younger than me, my colleagues, but it's not weird. And please give yourselves a break. I beg you.
Yes. Yes, that's honestly something that I have to like do for myself because like obviously I like to be in the industry as well, but I'm in a particularly interesting spot. I didn't even like go to college for an art major to be honest, but like just doing cartoons has been a personal aspiration of mine, so I definitely want to reach that one day.
What did
And
you study?
also,
Can
I
I
want to
ask?
say, um, oh yeah, for sure, for sure. I studied human services at New York City College of Technology over in Brooklyn.
What's that?
Oh yeah, so human services, yeah, you would basically just like say it's around like social work. I've taken like a
Ah,
couple courses around like counseling, community organization. Um, one thing that was like really one thing that was really rewarding for me, honestly. I think from like 2019 to like early 2020. It felt for longer. But I was interning at a day habilitation program near my college that um like take no nothing but taking care, but like oversaw a lot of adults who had special needs. I was actually like in charge of a little computer readiness program that I was able to like make from scratch, and it was a really rewarding experience. And
I bet.
while it did end prematurely, yeah, of course, due to COVID. It was a really rewarding experience, and ironically, because of my coworkers there, I was able to get the confidence to be on this road, making videos, and trying to like pursue animation, and like one door closes, another door opens, basically.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. First of all, to pursue that as a field of inquiry at all is so beautiful. Really good for you. And yeah,
Mhm.
you know,
Thank you.
sometimes all we need is like momentum, not even anything specific, just like the
Yeah.
people around you believe in you and think whatever you do is going to be great. Sometimes that's enough to get going. So I think just like there's this thing I often think about. Jim Henson, when he was alive, used to love this song, and it used to go, "If just one person believes in you, loud enough and long enough believes in you." And I think that's really important. And it kind of doesn't matter who it is or what it's about. If you really trust them and they see something there, that can be enough.
Oh, definitely. I really do agree. Um, I wouldn't be here in this spot if I didn't have like friends, family, coworkers like really believing me. Um, I've wanted to do um obviously like I wanted to like do cartoons since I was younger. I wanted to do videos based on them since I was about in high school. So just to be able to be in this spot really does mean a lot.
That's
And
awesome. So,
also, um oh yes, 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 for sure, for
no,
sure.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no. Um like I still want you to say whatever you have to say. I was just going to announce to you and my guests, we're gonna be doing something a tad different. Just because the fact that um a lot of the fan questions that we normally say for the end like are relevant. So I'll probably just like interject, just like slide one or two of them in, just like catch you through
Sure.
conversation. You're okay
Yeah,
with that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, of
Okay,
course.
okay,
Yeah.
perfect. Perfect.
Um, what I had wanted to ask is so you then are completely self taught with your drawing and animating.
Basically, yeah. Basically like a lot of the stuff I've been doing on YouTube as well. I've been trying to incorporate motion graphics. Even this very podcast, honestly, has been almost entirely like self-made.
Oh my gosh, good for you.
Thank you. Thank
Of
you.
course.
Of course, like I have like people who are always willing to help, but in terms of, like actually producing it, this is all for me, honestly.
That's so beautiful. That's really cool and great. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Circling back to you,
Mhm.
something that I wanted to ask in terms of like your experience in animation series so far, um, are there any similarities or differences between uh like working in Canada for animation versus working in America?
Yes. So Canadian productions, um, s- so I work in Montreal. or I was working in Montreal when I lived here. And most of the stuff I did here was kind of original IP, whereas a lot of the stuff, particularly in Toronto and Vancouver, is what's called service studios, where it's a little bit like the way studios, for example, in Korea or the Philippines handle animation, where stuff is outsourced, usually from American productions to us. That's not quite what I was working on. I was doing boards because all the production stuff, but pre-animation stuff, was being done in-house. It was much smaller teams. The budgets reflected these smaller productions, and as such, my responsibilities were a little more limited, just because stuff like staging and really just the money you can put into animation is necessarily limited, and so you don't want to exceed that in the boards. The biggest difference, well, two. The two biggest differences when I came to LA, one, I am in the union now. Animation in Canada, by and large, I believe there may be one or two studios in Vancouver, but by and large is not union. There's a lot of reasons people have for and against. I will say that the union in LA has been essential to me and was a deciding factor in me choosing to work here. Well, there, I'm home right now, but without it, for example, I may not have the insurance I have, and I come from a place of socialized medicine. So the idea of not having access to care is frankly devastating. And a lot of other stuff for workers' rights that I just see borne out in my day to day that I really appreciate. And the other thing is that I came there to work on Jellystone, which is my first board driven show. And in Canada, I'm not aware if there is. Oh, thank you. Thanks so much. It was a big, big thing for me. Whereas in Canada, there is kind of no such thing. Most of the shows here, if not all of them, are script driven. I'm not aware of any board driven shows. So that was also a big motivator to go beyond wanting to work with Carl, was to have this opportunity to kind of write, which is something I wanted to get good at, or at least have a chance to try. I don't know if your audience, would it make sense for me to explain like what a board driven show is versus script driven?
Oh, absolutely, because it will segue into a question or two that I have later.
Oh,
So
cool.
please
Okay.
go.
Okay. So a script driven show, and I'm working on one of those now actually, since Jellystone has wrapped, is typically there is either a writer's room or a bunch of freelance writers, and the scripts are contracted out to them. And so when we get them back, they're done. There's no further input required from me, excuse me, as a board artist, as far as dialogue, story beats, anything that isn't strictly visual is going to be already locked in. There's pros and cons to this. There is some flexibility there in that, like stuff like visual gags, particularly if it's a gag heavy show, you have a lot of leeway with that. That stuff isn't necessarily going to be in the script, but all the stuff people say, and for the most part, what they do as far as story arcs, that's going to be locked in. With a board driven show, you get what's called an outline, which is maybe like a page or a page and a half of kind of main story beats and like ideas for the connective tissue, but they're not really set in stone. And you write the board essentially as you draw it. And what was really neat about Jellystone is that the people who wrote the outlines were us, which is uncommon. Often writers come in to do that. So there are outlines I wrote that were boarded by other people. There was at one point an outline I wrote that was boarded by me. And of course, even other people's outlines that I in fact boarded, all the jokes they say are either mine or ones my director did or ones Carl put in, because the board needed it. But truthfully, seeing the finished episodes and hearing the brilliant voice actors say the asinine words that I wrote is the proudest thing that's ever happened to me. There is nothing that has meant more.
It's just amazing. Oh my god. And I can imagine, like, of course, like I'm super, super like congratulatory as well. Um I'll say. And I remember like putting this like in the video. One of the episodes that you boarded, and of course feel free to correct me if I'm wrong,
Sure.
was Freebie Grocery Store. And there was a specific gag in there that legitimately just happened like on the floor. Because there was that one scene where Augie was with like the dancing cheeses, but then she took a bite out of it and you can hear the cheese just like screaming in realistic agony.
I am so delighted that you like that, and I'm even more jazzed to discover that the cheese, whoever did the color design, made the cheese identical to some pre-existing meme of like a triangle doing that dance.
Oh my
Which is
god!
I had no idea.
Oh my god! I
This
even
is
catch
amazing.
that.
It was people keep showing it to me. I'm like, who's this guy? So that's been cool, and I think
Oh
that
my
was one of the first sequences I boarded for Jellystone. They just said cheese hallucination, and yeah.
Okay, so now I'll be segueing into some questions.
Yeah.
So the first two come from my close friends Jera, and they're also Canadian.
Huh.
So first one, considering how loose and freeform, yeah, they're great. Considering how loose and freeform Jellystone is tonally, did you find that your experience boarding for it was markedly different than your experience boarding for other shows?
Yes. The answer is yes. I don't know that it is necessarily because the show ended up so fast and fun, but we did have
Mm-hmm.
really short deadlines in which to do a lot of both writing and drawing. But what was so fun and freeing about that is that there wasn't sort of the level of like polishing and posing that you often see in for example like boards the SpongeBob crew puts online tend to be very elaborate. My boards for Jelly look like I did them in the
Right.
time I did in fact do them. um, but there's something genuinely loose about that. Some of the drawings I would not love for you to see, but some of them you catch the joy. You know, when you go fast, sometimes the line just has the joy.
Right. There's like a certain level of just humor in of itself, just from like very simple, just like expressive drawings.
Mm-hmm.
They might not look like completely on model, but if it especially if it's funny, you kind of don't need that. As long as you're able to just make out what's supposed to be happening, who the characters are, and what they represent, then that's really all that matters.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. That is absolutely Carl's point of view, and it is my preference that particularly we have revisionists, as most shows do, and we have overseas studios that we trust. So it's okay to make funny the primary focus as opposed to on model. Um, there's first of all, it's not necessary to the show. It's
Yeah.
necessary that the show be funny. And second of all the hands that are going to touch it after me, if that's important, they are much better qualified than I am to take care of it.
And this is like a I mean, of course, like, people can feel free to disagree, but a personal feeling that I've had towards shows is that um I guess to like try to explain it, comedic shows especially, not to say that like more comedic shows can't have like no like good art style. It's like I still think in its own way Jellystone really looks like mwah. But just like the idea of going off model again, just like allows for more vibrancy. Like different shows serve different purposes, and while like I still think that we have to like really really like dig in order we can find that perfect balancing act of like action, drama, comedy, and like a 5-star art style. It's kind of not needed. Sometimes you can have shows that we just sit back, kick your feet up and just laugh at some funny pictures. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. One of my personal favorite shows, Kablam, from Nickelodeon, just like not only a plethora of art styles, but just like also accompanies just that free form, off model, just zaniness. And any show that encompasses that vibe as well. No, especially OKKO in its own way. Some of that I greatly appreciate.
I have such a soft spot for Kablam. Mark Merrick, who
Ooh.
designed the two little, oh, I can't remember their name, June maybe? The two little dude and lady
Yeah, Henry and June.
interstitials. Yes, thank you. He designed them and I believe handled most of the production on those. And I have heard a rumor, is working at WB right now. And every day I wonder if I should write because I would be able to find his address in our company kind of roster thing, and it is deeply tempting to bother this guy just to tell him I love him.
Oh no. Like trust me. I would absolutely do the same if I was in your shoes. I mean, like fun fact, and like this is definitely gonna be like a callback to previous listeners. But in one of my first episodes, I actually had Asterius Kokonos, who was a freelance writer for Right Now Kapow. And Mark Merrick ended up doing a lot of the art direction for that show. Like he was like one of the pivotal people working on that show over at WB. And it was also like one of the reasons I liked it. And I know we also did a lot of stuff on Mad, and Yabba Dabba Dinosaurs, and I think Batman Brave and the Bold. But basically, like WB Animations just made a lot of stuff that I've liked, and I never really added two and two together until now. But I mean, it's definitely market quality.
Yeah, I should really email him. Yeah, WB was kind of under the radar for me too. I don't think I really had an awareness beyond the DC stuff, kind of what they were doing, and I was never really a Batman kid. But yeah, I mean, a lot of fun shows in that history. And as far as, sorry, we kind of wandered off. As far as on model, I'm not
Yeah.
super deep in the discourse, as the kids say, but I do notice there's like a subsect of of animation fans who sort of like conflate being on model with effort, and maybe being off model with like
Yes.
laziness. You'll correct me if I'm wrong, I hope. And
Mm-hmm.
that as far as how animation
Oh
actually
no.
is
Like
made.
you're completely on the
Oh,
right.
good. So that as far as how animation actually gets made is misplaced. It's not a thing. Um, but I don't share obviously that point of view. To be honest, as both a maker and a fan, right? As someone who has been a nerd, particularly for television animation all my life, um, I want to see the sausage, OKKO, which you brought up particularly,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't even ink that show. What you see is pencil, and sometimes you see like around the wrist, you get a little construction line. I I like seeing that. I want to see a pose that I thought was a special pose that's like way off model. That's the fun.
Yeah. Oh my god. Oh man. Well, first off, I can just definitely tell, like, based off the shared Kablarengy alone, we're gonna be great friends. But no, I completely agree. Oh my god. But before I nerd out again, Let me get back on track. Um, some of these questions we might have like touched on previously. So um feel free, you don't have to go as in depth.
Okay.
But I have a double whammy. I have another one from Jera, and I
Okay.
have one from YouTube. One from Katie.
Okay.
Jared's question is, which sequences did you have the most fun boarding throughout your career? And Katie's question is just basically, what was it like working with C.H. Greenblatt?
Oh, wow. Let me do the second one first, and then you may have to remind me what the first one was. Okay. So,
Oh yeah,
what was
for
it?
sure.
What what was it like working with Carl? So I kind of lucked into this. I was a huge fan of Harvey Beaks, big, big, big. And at this time, Tumblr
Hmm.
was still a going concern, and most of my online comics I was putting up on Tumblr, and uh, Greenblatt one day followed me or liked several of my comics or something. And at the time, I feel like this is purely speculation, but I get the sense that showrunners were maybe less accessible and had less people bugging them all the time, because I don't remember having the hesitation I would now. Uh, but I reached out to him and I told him, I wrote him
Yes.
essentially a fan mail. I told him I'm an enormous fan, and that I work in animation, which I had just started to at the time. And I said, look, like, it's a long shot, but nothing would make me happier than to be on your team. Um, and he said, yeah, like, I'll think about it, or something to that effect. He was always very nice, which makes sense because he's a nice person. And I think I checked in
Yes.
once or twice, maybe over the course of like a year or 2 years, when I would find myself between jobs. I would sort of like fish in every well and, shoot him an email and say, like, hey, is today the day? And it wasn't. But what he had in development all that time was Jellystone. And so, August 2019, I got an email from him with the subject line, "It's happening." And then I think 2 days later, I had committed to the job. Oh, so what's it like working with him? I didn't answer the question.
Super
Um,
neat.
so, yeah, he is a real
Oh no, no,
doll.
no! It's still relevant.
He is a real doll. What I admire about Carl, well, obviously a lot of stuff. He's a cool guy who makes cool stuff. What I admire about him is he's really invested in having a crew where the personalities gel, and that's super important, that kind of crew ecosystem. Being outside the office, it ended up being less of a thing, but initially those 2 months at the beginning were really fun. And he's also got, and I would imagine this comes with experience, sort of insight into bringing people's individual strengths and individual ideas to bear on the show. um, and just allowing us to kind of
Right.
get personal with it, even if it sort of like takes a little detour from what I have to assume he thought it was. And I love that. I think that's such a lovely quality in a person and such a necessary quality in a leader.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, I mean, of course, I'm a big fan of Sea Dreamblast stuff as well. I explicitly remember being a kid, back when Chowder was still running episodes. And like even back then, just like his art direction, that specific style of humor, definitely left an impact on me, as a young kid. Um now, the interesting thing, so I wanted to segue into one of like my discussion points. So the interesting thing is that like you were, creating your art, creating your comics over on Tumblr. So I wanted to like dive in a bit deeper onto those. So like,
Sure.
for especially like for the people who are uninitiated, like what is it like to create comics, and you know um for the actual subjects you like portraying in them, you know, how how do you get ideas as to what to include? Like how do you express yourself into your comics is what I mean.
Sure. I want to preface by saying I haven't put up a new comic in like possibly years. And part of the reason, and I guess I'll circle back around to this, is that what I was doing was autobio comics. And they were
Mhm.
often really raw. And the way I was getting ideas for them was kind of that everything became grist for the mill, so to speak. And it got to a point where I didn't want to be working that way anymore for a lot of reasons. And so I knew I would have to kind of slow down and reevaluate. And I stepped away from it and then was boarding so much I hadn't had a chance to go back. When I do, I'd like to do fiction. I think that'll be interesting.
Right.
But what was it like at the time when I would talk to like students? I remember I gave a talk to a buddy's class on comics. I said, "Hi, my name is Megan. I make comics on the internet about mental illness and being fat." So that's like a summary. Um, I am fortunate in two ways. One, everybody was pretty receptive. I did not encounter like hate or abuse in any way. I think probably because I wasn't visible enough, thankfully. And secondly, I was very fortunate
Right.
that
Right.
um, my family, for whatever reason, either never found these or never cared enough to look. And that made it a lot easier to pursue. I'm not the first to say that, and I know it is funny, but it's a real if these comics had been followed by like challenging conversations about my interior landscape, I would absolutely have stopped making them. I don't want to do that.
Like, honestly, like, just the idea of making like autobiographical comics, especially about mental health, which is something, like as people discuss, like I take seriously and I greatly admire. I just like admire that. It does make sense, to want to part from that because like you should take care of your own mental health. But art is creative expression, and for everyone that is different. There's different values as to like how much of yourself you want to put into it, but you have to put some degree of yourself into your art. And all in all, I just find that like really admirable. Um, in terms of art, I also, so since you had mentioned you were interested like going to fiction, um how was your experience in illustrating for children's books?
Yeah, that was really fun. So my first one, which I saw you actually pulled the cover of, talk about obscure. My first one was for a Canadian publisher called,
Yes.
yeah, called Anik Press, and I get a lot of like kind of contacts by just asking people for a job, or it seems I did at the time. So I was desperate to get out of the office I was
Mhm.
in, and I had written to Anik initially asking for a desk job. I wanted to know if they needed a designer or some kind of an assistant, which they didn't, which is for the best because I didn't really know how to do those things. Um, but they found out that I was an illustrator and I ended up on their roster. And they offered me Move It Miss Macintosh, which was my first book to illustrate. So fun, my God. I think I had imagined book illustration, your relationship with the art director is a little more hands on their end. But I ended up with a lot of freedom to kind of just draw it how I saw it. And that was fun. And then the more recent one I did is Wannabe Farms with Brian McCann, who is like a genius TV writer. And this book, if you have kids around like 6 to 10, maybe, um, who like a rhyming book, I really urge you to pick this up. It is legitimately funny. My drawings aside, it is funny as all get out. And he, of course, he worked he worked on Conan. He's a genius. So I got who did I do that with? It was Penguin Works, which is a Penguin imprint. So that was my first American book, also, which is a big deal, much bigger market here. And my gosh, what a joy! It's I don't know, it was it 60 illustrations? I did a whole whack of illustrations for it. They're limited palette, so I could really like go wild with the drawing because I wouldn't really have to color them. And chickens and cows and
Yeah,
pigs and just the funnest of the fun. Truly a top tier job. Thank you, Penguin.
sounds like, oh my god, it sounds like just like an amazing experience.
It
No, and of
was.
course, like I really think it's pivotal to really um just be able to express yourself because of course, like speaking personally, but when you're young, especially like elementary, like junior high, I think that's like um just like the perfect moment for not only for kids to like have their like interest in books like heightened, but just be like reading books to like really stick with them, like stuff like Captain Underpants, Big Nate, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Goosebumps, Animorphs, stuff like that, really sticks with you. So I really do think, you know, like not only should like people just be engaged in like wanting to create this stuff, but like kids, kids should read basically, and
Sure.
I'm just like it's really, really like just inspiring to just like hear your enthusiasm for this stuff.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I it was a fun book to do. I will say, as a 37-year-old adult, it was a fun book to read. And yeah, I can fully back the idea that kids should read books, read comics, draw. Um, they, as long as you have it inside you to do those things and to make and to consume that way, do.
Absolutely. Like I still remember just like doodling the margins of my notes. One of my current original characters is someone that I've been trying to develop since like high school. So as long as you have that spark, you absolutely can continue to go places with it.
Yeah, for sure. I think
Um
that's so beautiful. I
so
can barely remember any
yes.
person or thing I draw. But yes, I always tell particularly younger people who might kind of you get into adulthood and suddenly self-doubt exists. And I often say, if it's in you to make, for
Yeah.
goodness sake, make it. If you have the time and the wherewithal and the resources, don't take the time to ask any further questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. To circle back to another question. Um Well, this could be about Jellystone, but if the settlement pops up in any of your previous works that you boarded, feel free. Another fan question from Quiet. Is there a common thread in how you translate and exaggerate physical comedy in your animations?
Um, so not having an animation background, I actually don't know how to animate. I can do like the bouncing ball, but generally speaking, I am awestruck by it because it's magic to me, but I don't know a lot about what happens to my boards after I'm done with them. Um, I will say I like pushing expressions. It's something I'm always trying to get better at. And pushing physicality. That's another one of these things that, like, if your show gives you the time and the budget and the freedom to go there, you want to. I think most of us do. Um, but I think also that was maybe something about the way I drew or the things I was interested in drawing that lent itself well to boards to begin with. Because I do like that, and I also really favor economy and kind of the funniest line if you've only got one line, and drawing fast. So yeah.
Okay, for sure, for sure. Um, let's see. Okay. So we got a question from Gary Chamarki. He's an animation writer. And as of this recording, he was on a previous episode. Um, yeah, he's
Oh,
great. He's a
cool. Hi,
great dude.
Gary.
He's
Oh,
yes.
cool.
uh, now, um, now looking at this question, it's a good question, but if you can't answer, that's understandable. Um, this obviously this is about Jellystone. Gary asks,
Okay.
what were some of the characters that the team wanted to use but couldn't due to rights issues?
Oh, yeah, I can tell this is an animation writer. This person knows where the juice is. So legally, I cannot answer that. And due to my own limitations and having a pathetic attention span, I'm not sure I could remember in many cases. But I will say there was a lot we wanted and couldn't get, if only because the Hanna-Barbera catalog is vast. There are so many side
Right,
characters. Many of them either have names that are hilarious on their own, or look hysterical. Like, you want to put them in the boards even if you don't really know what they do. Excuse me.
right.
I will say some very unlikely ones, i.e., the banana splits, which down to the wire, I boarded one of those banana splits episodes. I didn't know if they were going to make it in. I have no idea how we would have come back from that, but it was up in the air. So there there were as many improbable gets as there were, unfortunately, we can't.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. It really is a situation where you have to like take what you can get. It's up to chance. But I honestly think that we kind of have a pretty good, rogues gallery, so to speak. Obviously, I am biased because, like Adaman's one of my favorites, and I think I saw someone like I'll probably put this in the video, but there were some storyboards I saw someone do, and if this sounds familiar, feel free to say their name. But there was a deleted scene where Yogi accidentally uh, burnt adamant to a crisp because of that whole magnifying glass in the sun thing that he did by accident.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I wish I could remember what episode that is. Oh, shoot.
I'll absolutely put in
Yes.
post, but oh my god.
Yeah, please do. Yeah, man, all of those pitches, we were so fortunate to be able to watch even online each other's pitches, regardless of if we worked on the episodes. And all of those pitches were so funny. And I actually haven't had a chance to see every single episode that dropped, but I will say the ones I have watched, I've seen them before and I still laughed.
Oh man. Uh, Incredible, honestly. Especially due to like my current time. I don't really have a lot of time to rewatch stuff, but the episodes I've seen multiple times at this point, and it really does feel like there's something new that I don't even like catch on my first watch through. So they're just like endless things. Um, Now, of course, I'm gonna sound like super intellectual for a bit, but I remember there was a gag where Wally Gator for that talent show scene, like one of the episodes later on, there was a gag and he was drawing himself and then he was drawing himself, and I feel like, no, bear with me on this. I feel like that's like a perfect visual metaphor for the show's humor, and that like you get it like on its initial premise, but like there's just like more complexities to it. Like, I just think the show is funny, and there's just like a lot of stuff that people just like don't pick up on in the immediate sense. And it rewards you for just like keeping a keen eye, and I really do respect that.
Yeah, I really love that too. And it's funny. The show doesn't strike me as like lightning fast. I guess because of the way it's cut, it's not
Mhm.
super fast. But the writing does come at you fast, and like stuff will whiz by you like a throwaway. That is the funniest thing I've ever heard. And I mean, it makes sense. These are the
Right.
funniest people I've ever worked with.
Oh my god. And let's see. Oh, okay. Uh we have like another question. This is like a much more casual one. From Henry, who is
Okay.
also in the YouTube comments. Oh, also not that Henry. I know, kablam, but But yes, Henry
Oh,
asked, but yes, Henry asked,
actual human Henry.
basically, yes, exactly, actual human Henry. But yes, Henry asked, basically, what is your favorite anime, if you have any?
Ah, that's fun as heck. Thank you, human Henry. My favorite one I watched most recently was Odd Taxi. Which I'm told has
Mhm.
been a little bit under the radar, but a lot of people on YouTube are talking about it. It's one season, it's an original anime, so you really get a beginning and end. What a tight little story and just a charming world. The OP is my favorite piece of credits animation song I ever in the world. I really love it. There is very little to not like about it. I struggle to imagine it leaving anybody cold. And for me, I don't watch a ton of anime, so a lot of times comedies um, are over my head a little bit. They kind of rely on like references and tropes that I'm not literate enough in to really laugh. But Odd Taxi, credits to whoever has done the localization as well, but the writing is so sharp and so fast that it really is very funny.
Honestly, that's like great to hear. Personally, um, I'm just like so busy. I regrettably, there are just like some shows that just like go onto my radar as well. I am myself as I'm recording this. I am just starting to watch Jujutsu Kaisen over on HBO Max. Um, no, not
Oh, that's been
sponsored by
recommended to me
not my
many
listeners.
times.
uh, but no, it's really good. Like honestly, there's just like one of those shows where it's like the only thing I knew going in was just like the opening, but like that first opening, not only was like the song perfect, but like I kept watching all that video and just like never got bored. It was just so exhilarating.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm actually glad because like there's always like an infamous rule with some animes that like the opening's like so good, like the actual show doesn't really like match it. But no, I really do think
Sure.
it matches. Just so good, so good.
Oh, that's a strong endorsement. How many seasons is there?
I think it's only one season at the moment.
Okay, I have time for that. I have time for one season.
Yeah, yeah, it's 24 episodes, maybe a movie. Yeah, it's a perfect bitch.
Oh, all right. I'll take it. Thank you.
For Yeah, no problem. Anytime. Now obviously this is this could be like a podcast episode in itself because I've got some obscure picks on my list personally. If you like, I'm just gonna throw it out there, but if you were at all familiar with something like Oban Star Racers, I know like some of my friends listening to this are just gonna like scream in joy over it.
No, I've never heard of that. What's that?
Oh my god. Oh, this is gonna be good. Okay. So, around, I want to say like the mid 2000s, this was like a French and Japanese co-production that aired on Jetix. And Thomas Romain was like the lead people, behind it. He was also, he also worked on Code Lyoko, and he was also, I think he also worked on Space Dandy, actually. Um, but basically, and to any Oban super fans in in the audience, I might be butchering this, but basically, it's just a beautifully animated tale of a huge like intergalactic race that decides like the fate of the planet. And it's just got like a lot of heart, and that's like the main plot. But at the end of the day, it also really is like a bittersweet but ultimately heartwarming tale of a girl trying to emotionally reconnect with her father. There's just like a lot of great character designs. Like the dub is like very good. The CG like honestly still holds up. It is just like great stuff all around. Like one of my favorites, and it's also only like 26 episodes, so it's definitely like a binger for sure.
That sounds great. I mean, you're really selling it. Text
Oh,
me
thank you.
or tweet me the name of this because I'll never remember. But yeah.
All right, so of course I'll definitely text you, and to anyone in the audience, like definitely watch Oban. Um, I'm pretty sure there's like some like there's been like murmurs of not only like a Blu-ray, but like some form of sequel. Like both the people behind it like are definitely interested. So like any fresh blood I can get into the show, you know, it really is like a masterpiece. Like I would just say that. You had like a lot of stuff on Jack's Head Time, which is immediately like I watch it anyway, just like a lot of like toy anime and Power Rangers. Then you had like something like this, where it's like something like far beyond that. I can just like recommend to just like anyone, regardless of age or whatever. So, however you can, definitely watch Oban. uh, but
I will do.
um, I yes, absolutely. But I will say, and well, we are doing good for time, obviously. But I will say, this has been a really just an amazing episode of the KashCast. Megan, I will just again say, you've been a great guest, and not only thank you for coming on the show, just thank you for following me in general. I honestly never expected it. So the idea I'm having like just this amount of support by someone like this high up. Not to geek out too much, obviously, but I really do appreciate it. It really does mean a lot.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for having me. This is my very first podcast, so big excite. And my gosh, you're a doll. I'm sure your listeners are too. And as like I said earlier, I don't know if we were recording. I'm a fan. I love thinking hard about cartoons. I love watching other people thinking hard about cartoons. And your channel is one of the ones I watch to do that. It's a delight.
Thank you very much. I will say,
You're welcome.
like my interests obviously do like lie beyond exclusively animation. Like there's some game stuff, there's some anime stuff. I've had two big projects that I've been jonesing to for a while. It's admittedly like kind of an in joke that I end up mentioning them to like each of my guests, but they're gonna get done, obviously. But thank you again very much for the support. Before we close off, obviously, we should be watching Jellystone on HBO Max, and we'll definitely keep up with your future projects. And if you're ever interested in coming back, for sure, like, there's always a free chair. But how can our listeners find you, to keep up with you?
Yeah. Oh wow, somehow I wasn't ready for this. I'm at Meghan Lands on everything.
Mhm.
Everything being Instagram and Twitter. And then I have an outdated website where you can read most of my comics, including the ones from Tumblr and the ones I did for the Nib. And that is meghanlands.com. That's meghanlands.com.
Okay, perfect. No, and of course, this is absolutely going to go for me. But again, it's been a pleasure having you, and I will definitely support you however I can with any of your future projects. And just like thank you in general for just not just to you, but everyone who's had a hand in Jellystone. It's definitely one of my favorites on HBO Max. And, obviously listeners watch it on HBO Max or Cartoon Network if you can. That was something that surprised me. It's going to be airing on Cartoon Network in the fall.
Yes. It'll Yeah, it'll be on your TV if you have cable. I am begging you, show it to your kids. I think they'll think it's funny. And everyone who's already watched it, for me, and I mean the crew members that I've been in touch with, but I'm sure everyone, we love you so much. We love that you are tagging your tweets HBO Max to get their attention, and we especially love, my gosh, your fan art and your memes, and the speed at which you generate these things is mind blowing. I have never been more delighted. So keep doing that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that'll be a great way to close. Again, thank you very much for attending. And for all of our listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the KashCast. I've been Cash.
I am me still. I'm Megan. Hi.
Yes. And we will both see you next time. Just remember to take care, stay safe, wear a mask, listen on anchor.fm/KashCast, KASHCAST, and make sure to stay safe. Love and peace, always.